when you're looking to perform or you're looking to succeed, you're always thinking you need to do more.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, you've got to consider academics, you've got to consider when you're going to eat and when, how much you're going to drink. And I think how a balanced week should look like is that you feel like everything is manageable. Yes, you may be busy, but if you eat properly, you drink properly, and you sleep properly, often the academics and then the training comes. The goal from this is actually just empowering girls and women to be able to know about what their bodies feel like at any given time in the cycle, but equally that they have the confidence that they can perform or thrive at any time of their cycle.
Just because I'm feeling like a little bit worse means I can't PB or I can't go out and do my best performance. Like, it's really hard to say, no, I can still do it. I can still do this.
Yeah. And for you, is that self-talk, or is it just that you go through it so many times that you now have the confidence to know, yes, I'm not feeling great, but I know I can perform?
I think to start with, I was like, On this episode today, we're going to be talking about managing the female menstrual cycle, and I'm Kate Stewart, and I'm joined by
Caroline McManus. I'm head of physiology at High Performance Sport New Zealand. And today, what we're going to try and delve into a little bit is actually just around, even not so much as just the management of the menstrual cycle, but actually what it is for us as females, how important it is in our lives, and distinguishing, our whole menstrual cycle from the actual period, which is the visible sign of the menstrual cycle, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about balance, how we can manage our lives within our sport and everything else that goes on, academics and family and social life.
Yeah, cool. Can you tell me about your role at High Performance Sport?
Yes, I am currently in the role of head of performance physiology. I worked as a physiologist actually in the rowing program up until I took on that role.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So can you tell me why the menstrual cycle is important for girls and women?
Sure. So we often think of the menstrual cycle and reproductive health. And so, yes, it plays a primary role on reproduction and reproductive health for women. However, there's also a huge role of those hormones play in actual primary health roles, such as brain health, muscle, bone, tendon, and cardiovascular health. So we can't forget about that.
Yeah, so
conversation.
In the sense of how does the menstrual cycle affect your training in that way?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, and it's I think a very relevant question that we see asked a lot by girls and women the world around. We hear a lot of discussions around phase-based training and things like that. Well, it's what we try to come at it is actually from a self-discovery of your own menstrual cycle, because actually there isn't enough solid evidence for us to be able to say that it affects training across the cycle. Yes, coming into a period or premenstrual phases, people are going to feel differently.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you can't be at your best or perform at your best.
So can you tell me more about what the menstrual cycle actually is?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually a centrally driven hormonal rhythm. So meaning it's driven from the brain.
Yeah.
And it's responsible for the production of both estrogen and progesterone, which, as we said, have a role in reproductive health, as we all know. But those hormones are vitally important in our in women's health, particularly from brain health, muscle, bone, tendon, and cardiovascular health. So all of those things, as you can see, are going to contribute to how you are as a young athlete or just as a healthy female.
No, I had no idea it was driven from the brain. That's so interesting.
Yes,
That's so interesting. Mm-hmm. What kind of effects does this have on training and how you're feeling, or should you be phasing your training? I know we see a lot of things on social media and stuff about how during this phase of your period you should be doing this. Is that true, or where do you stand on that?
So that's a great question, and I think very relevant because, as you say, we see a lot on social media about phase-based training. Look, the evidence is very clear at the moment. We don't have solid evidence for us to be able to actually change the way that we approach training day to day. And one of our colleagues has just come back from ECSS conference in Europe, and it's the same messaging is coming across as, yes, there's some great studies, and potentially in time this actually may may be a relevant conversation, but right now there isn't enough solid evidence for us to be able to promote phase-based training. What we try to do, and within our HPSNZ Healthy Women in Sport program, is we're asking people to, or we ask, and athletes that I've worked with in the past as well, is just learning about themselves. So we call it self-discovery. And the goal from this is actually just empowering girls and women to be able to know about what their bodies feel like at any given time in the cycle, but equally that they have the confidence that they can perform or thrive at any time of their cycle.
Yeah, and I completely get that, because I know, like, obviously, like, as you say, the phase-based training, you need to be able to perform at any point, and that's like the whole point. But also, like, I often know that I feel like coming into my period, I always feel like a bit meh, you know, like, and I'm like, I need to, like, I don't want to change my mindset that I can't, just because I'm feeling like a little bit worse means I can't PB or I can't go out and do my best performance. Like, it's really hard to, like, say, no, I can still do it. I can still do this. Yeah.
And for you, is that self-talk, or is it just that you go through it so many times that you now have the confidence to know, yes, I'm not feeling great, but I know I can perform?
I think, like, to start with, I was like, oh, like, I'm not feeling that good today. I'm never going to be able to do it. And I think it's just mental. Like, you know, you just hear some things and you're like, oh, like, maybe that's true. Like, maybe I'm not feeling good. Maybe I'm not up to it. And then, like, I was just like, no, I need to, like, just, I can do this. There's no reason why I can't today. And I just need to put
Absolutely. And have you, with even going into some of those races or tests that you've had to do at those phases, have you then come out, going in with the mindset that this, oh no, I feel awful, but then you've actually done quite well?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. There's been, like, I've obviously PD'd when I'm, like, leading up to my period, and I'm like, oh, I can do this.
Yes, exactly. And then even sharing those kind of experiences. And I think that's one thing that's really important for us as females.
It's not even talked about. No one would be like, oh, I'm not feeling that good today because my period's just about to come. They're like, you just, like, make up another excuse, or you don't say anything, or you just, you know, that kind of thing.
So we want to open those conversations more. Yeah.
We want to say, oh no, but, like, you can do this.
Yes.
Like, you've got this.
Okay. So we've already spoken about the menstrual cycle. So what we want to distinguish is what the menstrual cycle is from what a period is.
Yeah.
The period is part of the menstrual cycle. It's not the entire menstrual cycle. So a period is actually what happens when we get that fall in estrogen and progesterone, and it's the only visible sign of the menstrual cycle that we can see. So we relate hugely to that because it's what we see.
It's like our feedback on how we're feeling or what's going on in our body.
Of what's going on in our body, exactly. Because all those hormonal shifts we don't see, we feel.
Yeah,
right.
We do feel.
Yes, exactly. And then,
like, how can you prepare for your period, especially that as a young rower going out on the water? Like, what are some key things that we can think about or we can talk about that makes it more comfortable for people?
That's a great question, I think, and I think can cause some anxiety to some girls and even women still.
Yeah.
I think little things that you can prepare for is how you feel in the lead up to getting your period. And that's what we're speaking to, is being on top of your recovery, hydration, recovery, fueling. Those things are all going to actually contribute to you feeling better.
Yeah.
I think other things to be prepared for is also your period products. So things like pads, tampons, cups, whatever it is. And we saw in that article in the Herald,
the ultra marathon
runner, or even the sailor who was on the water for hours, and how they prepare and how they plan for when they have their period.
Yeah, because we know it can be, like, hard because we are out on the water for hours, and you're like, oh. Like, also we talked about bringing spares and, like, that kind of thing, just to, like, make it comfortable, like potentially having a period box at your club. Like, I noticed we have one at Rowing New Zealand, like that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think I love hearing you say sharing, because we're all sharing the experience, and to pardon the pun, we are in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
So you wanna kind of destigmatize having a period, or whether you're the only one in the boat that has it, that you can all share in the experience that, you know, we're okay, we're all together, and I've got something that if you need it, you know, or vice versa. With regards to, I think, having period products available, you know, we know in schools that they do so. I think there's still a little bit of, I have to go to the nurse's office to get them, because when they put them in the toilets, people throw them around.
You have to go down to the office to ask for it. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that.
No, and that's, I have 2 daughters, and one would say the same thing. But we're still at a place, I think, where you put products into a bathroom and then they can just be destroyed. So we've got to, create an environment, and we're all responsible for that as females. This is the norm, and these are important. Yeah. What I think is brilliant in terms of information, in terms of preparation and stuff, is even those infographics on the back of toilet doors. And you speak to so many people and they say, oh, I actually picked up something I didn't know, or I now know that I can find period products in, X place or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So what does a balance look like in a young female or a young female rower?
And when you say balance, do you mean what does a balanced menstrual cycle look like in
balance in general, like how should you be sleeping well, like those kind of things. And
Absolutely.
Then having a balanced menstrual cycle, it comes along with everything together.
Yeah, again, a great question. I think because rowing can tend to sometimes take over life a little bit more because there's volume involved in it, being an endurance sport. So we can get the balance, we can aim to get the balance right. And I think that's what we should kind of come at it with is, so you've just spoken to it really well. Sleep is really important.
So important.
Because there are early mornings, and it does mean going to bed earlier, and while you're doing that, you've got to consider academics, you've got to consider when you're going to eat and when, how much you're going to drink. And I think how a balanced week should look like is that you feel like everything is manageable. Yeah. Yes, you may be busy, but if you eat properly, you drink properly, and you sleep properly, often the academics and then the training comes. Yeah. The feeling, the sense of I'm actually enjoying this. There are days you're going to go in and you're not going to enjoy it, but that you actually are approaching your sport because, as young women, we should, you should be able to
balance the whole way.
Or just have there's still a sense of joy to what you do.
Oh, enjoy it. Yeah.
Where, on the contrary to that, I guess, is when things aren't balanced, you might not feel like you want to be doing it.
Yeah, something I find is that sleep is massive. If I don't get enough sleep, and I know we train really early at the Rowing Club, I have to be there at 5:10. Mm-hmm. So getting to sleep that early in the summer is really hard. But if I don't get enough sleep, I find that not my day is ruined, but I just everything just seems so much harder than it actually is. And we talked about nutrition, if it's not quite right, if I don't eat properly after a big morning training, I just feel sluggish at work, or I'm just a bit meh.
I know, yeah. But you've just highlighted there exactly what we spoke about in terms of what does balance look like. Yeah. That if you don't get enough sleep, it is going to be more difficult. If you don't eat properly, and that is even when you're a busy woman. Yeah. You've got to be really on the money when it comes to recovery post-training, recovery later in the day. And that doesn't mean lying down in your bed, because for busy people, that's not realistic.
It doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen. But, you can actually make that up, particularly, as we said, around your sleep and your nutrition and hydration.
Yeah. So we talked about that your period is a sign of, it shows where your hormones are at, or it's that kind of thing. So is that a regular period comes with having that balance? Absolutely.
And I think that's a really good point to talk about is regular periods are the sign of a healthy female. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that things won't get in the way when you've got, exam stresses or racing stresses. That things can kind of shift a little bit, but on the whole, what you have is you've got a very regular cycle of how things happen each, it might not be a month, it might be anything. In the big picture, it's when things start deviating from your norms that you sort of say that, okay, I'm lacking balance somewhere. I need to figure out where. And that's back to the self-discovery of me as an individual, not what somebody else is doing is really important.
So what are the signs that the balance might not quite be right?
Little things to look out for are irregular cycles. Yeah. So if this is happening a lot more than what you would have been used to, or a cycle that's become expanded, so that it looks longer than what it would have been. Irregular bleeding, so maybe bleeding in between the cycles, or just not what you would expect with a normal period.
Yeah.
Those are little signs that can tell us that maybe you're not quite getting the balance right, or maybe there's a bit more stress in life and you need to just consider managing things around that. Exactly.
Create a balance.
Because you do that and actually you can thrive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know, because there's a lot of like, you think about, oh, you've just got to go to rowing, but there's so many other stresses in life that come with it and managing everything all together. But you have to like then think about like, oh, what's happening with my period? Is this normal? And I think that tracking is a great way to start that, because then you notice those little things like I'm getting irregular bleeding or it's taken 5 weeks to get my period rather than the normal 3.5 or whatever.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think other areas that you can, always be aware of, particularly with endurance sports, is, and you would have spoken about it in nutrition podcast, is looking for signs like low iron. And your energy around having low iron can be quite stark too when you're just tired.
Yeah.
So, maybe even getting a check on your iron to be sure with your GP is always I think a good approach with young females.
It's a place to start as well.
Absolutely, to have the conversations.
Yeah.
So you just spoke about your own experiences and keeping the balance, but how do you keep the balance day to day particularly when you're busy with those early mornings and then going into what you're doing day to day?
I think that the thing for me is sleep, so I have to go to sleep really early to be prepared for that kind of thing. I have like a meticulous calendar that has like every time I should be where and like how long it might take me to get there, to make sure like I'm not cutting myself too short, because I know when I have those like stressful days where I've got too much on, it just like spirals. I don't have enough time to eat. I get tired, like those kind of things. So like creating like a life that I can manage. And I think like there's quite a lot like around rowers, especially I find at club level, it's like cool to be busier than everyone else, or like you want to be busier or you're doing more, and like that's cool. It's like actually like taking a step back sometimes and taking a break and like looking after how you're feeling, your mental health, like that kind of stuff is so important alongside to create a whole balance.
Absolutely, I couldn't support that more. And I think you've spoken really well to the every now and then taking a step back, because it's when you're looking to perform or you're looking to succeed, you're always thinking you need to do more.
Yeah, and you don't.
And we can oversubscribe ourselves, right? And then it catches up, and it catches up in ways that you don't want,
or like losing your period, or just like finding that you've low energy, that you just feel like everything's too much, and you don't want to be like that in life in general. So they're just creating like a balance where you just slow down a little bit every now and again. Like I know I'm coming to the end of my degree, and I've like already planned a little break where I'm going to like stop before I start my job and that kind of stuff. So it's like that kind of thing. Just like think about things that you can look forward to, or those breaks, or go away for the weekend or something like that.
No, that's a great habit, and I think keep doing that. And equally the same with being aware of your body around your own cycles of and how you feel.
Yeah, knowing that I feel like worse leading up to my period is so important. Like knowing that week I will need to drink more water, that I'll need to take more food, that maybe I prepare my meal for that week, or like make dinners just to make life easier. But
nice.
it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have any, have you found out anything about yourself that you are happy to share, around your body at different times in the cycle that you go, actually I need to do this at this point that makes me feel okay? Yeah,
no, just like what I spoke about is that the most important thing for me is leading up to my period. I'm normally like more harder to be around, you can say, but like just more like I need to feel better. I need to like think about just like taking the stress back a little bit, because I kind of often overbook myself and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I know that like after my period I feel amazing. I'm like flying. Training is so easy. You get through like those hard weeks and it's like, oh God, like I could do that 3 times over, and you get to the next week and you're I'm knackered.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that kind of thing, I don't know. I am very lucky in the fact that I've always had like a really regular period, and I think that is shown because I do look after myself and I manage the other stresses, but also like that comes with its own thing. Like you're always managing your period monthly, like it can be a lot.
But equally, I think you've spoken really well to the whole cycle and not just your period.
Yeah.
You've spoken to it really well around how you manage yourself.
Yeah.
Even in the lead up to it, is a, you know, when there's too much on, you do actually need to slow it down, and there's other times that you could just keep going. And that speaks well to if people are looking to track their cycle.
Yeah.
That you're learning about yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you've just
when you're feeling good and when you might be needing to like take a step back or
exactly, or what you need to do at different points of the cycle. And that's I think the beauty of tracking, is not tracking to change our training per se, but actually tracking to, you know, to understand how your body's responding at different times, because you can absolutely thrive.
Yeah, you can thrive at all points, and like just because you're tired doesn't mean you can't thrive.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing is just making it easier on yourself and knowing that you might feel like this leading up, or that maybe you might feel good this time. Like it's not necessarily always like a given. You just work out how you best manage yourself.
Yeah.
Have you worked with an athlete where finding the balance has made a big difference?
Absolutely, yes. So I worked in the Rowing New Zealand program elite program for 5 years, and this was an area we decided to put a focus on. What I'd like to start with is we didn't just jump in and make any changes, but what we did is we looked at over time. A number of them got to know what their bodies felt like through the cycles with the tracking tool. And what it allowed us to do was pick out at different times of her, you know, how she tracked in any one cycle. It also highlighted some iron deficiency issues, and that made a huge difference in terms of that. You talk about the balances, you know, why they felt so tired
why everything was hard.
Why everything was hard every day. Also, just like you spoke about, some premenstrual symptoms that she probably just got on with.
Yeah.
And it kind of highlighted a few things that we just needed to focus on in training. You know, things felt a little bit harder in that maybe week before.
Yeah.
And so she actually just put a bigger focus on her energy intake. And that, as she said to me, I think every month, you know, Caroline might remind me of something. She's told me it 100 times, but actually it just brought it to the forefront of what I needed to do, and hydration and nutrition always came to the fore. And us being very vigilant on iron status, because that, particularly when you start going to the bigger volumes, plays a massive role.
Yeah.
And if you're operating on low iron, you're not going to get the training adaptations that you want, regardless of whether you've got a healthy cycle or not.
So is that like young rowers can take from this that they need to like find that balance, in the sense that fueling and hydration and iron and having like a well-rounded diet with the red meats or whatever the plant-based option? Like,
I think you've summed it up perfectly. Is that yes, we have, you know, you may have issues, or you may have certain times, you know, you've highlighted that there's something not right. Yeah. But in actual fact, there's always something you can do about it. Yeah. Without having to pull what your everyday activities are, whether it's your sport or whether it's your academics, that you have the power to be able to help yourself. Yeah. And I think that's where we'd always like that messaging to come out, is that, you know, it's empowering females, so girls and women, to know I can do this. Yeah, and they can. They definitely can. Yeah. So what can you do at like a club level or a school level to support athletes? How can coaches, parents, clubs help? Yeah, I think just being open to the conversations. It is a hard place for male coaches. Yes. Obviously, male coaches with daughters might be different, but I have actually had male coaches going, how do I approach this? Because I'm unsure if parents are happy with it. But I think if we are open to the conversations where females feel supported, that if they, you know, chat to their coaches or their teammates, and equally the parents are keeping the conversations open with girls, is that it's just making it the norm, as opposed to, we're talking about our periods. We're talking about a menstrual cycle. This is actually just, you know. Yeah, just like the basic questions, like how are you feeling? Are you getting more tired than normal? Is your period regular? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah, and awareness around it. And I think clubs, you know, you asked about how coaches and parents, but I think clubs as well, providing spaces where females actually can feel comfortable you know, when they have their period or when they're preparing for it, that they have products that they can access. And sometimes I think when there's shared toilet spaces in particular, that might not be as comfortable for girls to be able to sort of, you know, go in and rock it. So I think that's where we can be supportive. Like I said earlier, I think infographics on the back of toilet doors are hugely empowering. But again, you want to be making sure they're in the appropriate spaces. Yeah,
we're talking about like at our club, we've got one shared toilet between 100 athletes, and like taking your tampon up and waiting in line for the toilet in the morning, and like everyone's rushing off trying to get you on the water. It's just like not ideal, but like also that's like everyone's in the same boat. Like you forget that all the girls are going through that at some point.
Yeah. So and as girls or women, do you talk about that?
Not enough, probably, right?
You're not enough to say, how can we make a change?
Yeah, like we always like we'll share spares and like that kind of stuff. We're comfortable with that. But like we don't be like, oh, like how can we help each other, or how can we like if someone needs to like sneak in line, can you just like make it not an awkward thing? Yeah. It's like that kind of thing.
And what about you know, advocating for yourselves in terms of getting a space just for
they are building new changing room, bathroom area. So,
fantastic.
So in the next year or so, we'll be good to go.
We'll get there. Good.
So what are the tools that you can use to track your period or self-check or see where you're at with your balance?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of online tools that you can access. I've used Fitter Woman with the athletes that I've worked with, because they can share their data if they want to, because it's all personal preference. But there's other tools such as Clue out there they're really good resources and allow you to track any number of areas, from bleeding to moods to, you know, feelings, and really useful. What I would advise people is that there is some advice on some of the resources out there around phase-based training. And just being aware of what we talked about before is that, you know, we're not in a space at the moment. And always remember, I think, when you're tracking yourself or you're looking at some of these resources is am I continuing to get better? Yeah. Well, why do I need to change something radically if I'm continuing to get better? If I'm not, is there a reason? Yeah. And using the tools maybe around there to go, oh, actually, I probably didn't eat enough there, or I didn't drink enough, or I had a lot on, you know, I had a lot on. And I think that's the beauty of those tools, is it gets you thinking about your day to day and what else is going on, and where you can actually maybe find little nuggets that you say, oh, actually, this is what makes me feel better. And sharing those with people that when you learn these things too, helping each other out, because it might be different for you to somebody else, but equally, you know, you learn from each other. Yeah.
Like personally, I've seen friends and people around me that have lacked the balance, and therefore it's had like a massive impact on their lives. They haven't been able to do sport, or their just day-to-day life has had a huge impact. What advice, particularly for young rowers entering like the next phase of rowing, what advice would you give them?
I think as simple as don't let your sport take over your life. Okay, it's a huge. We all, you know, why do we get into sport in the first place? Most of us do it because we absolutely love it. And it's why we do it. So always remember why you're doing your sport. As soon as it starts taking over your life, where your balance is impacted, whether it be your social balance, your family life, or your academics, that's where you got to ask the questions. And I think, you know, we can go into our sports worrying that if we don't turn up all the time, or if we're not doing, you know, 10 times what we're doing, then in actual fact, we're not going to get our space, you know, or a place in a boat. And so that's a really hard thing to do. And I think supporting each other on that, but also going back to having that balance of knowing your body is an awareness around that can help.
Yeah, because you find like you're competing against your teammates for a boat, and you just like are always like, oh, but if I do this much more than them, then I'll be this much better. And it's not like that.
No, absolutely. And trusting the coaches and the programs that they're giving you, I think, is probably a good, you know, they'll generally be at the right standard, you know, at the right area. So don't go outside of that. But equally, if it is too much for you, it's taking over your life, that's when you need to your point, stop, take a breath and stand back and see.
What do you think the key pieces of advice for young women are?
Well, obviously, you want to continue enjoying your sport. Balance is better. That's a slogan I think we should all work towards, is balance is actually better. And just being aware of how much your sport is in your life. Yeah. and enjoying everything else that is around it. So whether it's your social life, your family life, I think do go in and give your best at what you do.
Yes.
But equally, you've got to just have an awareness around, this one component of your life, because it's a very small part of it in the scheme of where your life is going over the next 20 and 30 years.
Yeah, cool.